17. What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to the 2017 Smark Out Moment Awards. Oh man, we're going to break down so many categories here. We have 6 different videos if you're watching on YouTube. If you're on iTunes and Stitcher, it's all going to go into one big thing here. But we have, I think it was 86 categories we're going to break down here if you count the best and the worst of WWE and Smack Talk from the whole past 12 months and everything like that. A lot of stuff to dig into, so I'm not going to make this a long intro. We are going to be talking a lot about a lot of different things. Going to get a lot of opinions out there from a bunch of different panelists. I am, of course, your host, as always, Tony Mango. Joining me on this Tony panel, we've got Mike Paden.
Hey.
We got Calen Ferris.
Hey, everybody. How's it going?
And we've got Callum Wiggins.
Yo, what's up, hoes?
And we might have some other people popping up later on. It kind of depends. Sickness and schedules and other things kind of getting in the way, but who knows? They might just pop up. You might get random kind of appearance. But without further ado, let's just dive right into this while we're at it. Technical Skills Awards is the first umbrella category that we've got going on here. A bunch of different things. I think it's like 9 categories in here with 2 subcategories in those, best and worst. We're going to start off the way that we always start off here. The best and the worst entrance of the year, which is pretty self-explanatory. I don't think I really need to explain that, but you got to factor in all the parts of somebody's entrance, the pyro, the lighting, the music, the taunts that they do, everything like that. And it could be their regular entrance or it could be a one-time entrance. So that's something to keep in mind too. I'm going to start things off with what I think is the worst entrance of the year, Big Cass. His theme music was horrendous. Not bad, just terrible. One of the worst songs I ever remember hearing, and it immediately had like this kind of philosophy that I went back in time with the old Cesaro theme that we used to hate with a passion, but worse. I hated that so much. On the, you know what, actually, let's go around and do our worsts before we do our bests. So, who wants to go with their worst?
I'll go with my worst. My worst is Dolph Ziggler with the silent entrance. I mean, I get it. I understand the point, but it's just lame. I mean, it's good for heel heat, but it does nothing for me.
I don't mind it too much, but I can see where you're going with that one.
I'm just smiling because Dolph Ziggler's already won a worst award. So but actually, my worst is Roman Reigns from the Royal Rumble this year.
What was so bad about that? Just because he was number 30?
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The huge negative reaction. It was such a just a downbeat moment for everybody because we were so excited thinking, was number 30 going to be Samoa Joe? Is somebody else returning? Is there going to be somebody else that could potentially win the Rumble? And then Roman Reigns' music hit. And then it turned what at the time was a really, really good Royal Rumble. And it made the last few minutes quite flat and unappealing to a lot of people. I mean, just having the crowd have such a negative reaction kind of ruined my enjoyment of the last few minutes.
Peter, what do you got?
This is a pretty simple one. Nom Dars. His music's dumb. That little pose he does where he puts his arms behind his back, it's barely even a pose. It's got nothing for me. He's a Darsh.
So, if we're looking on the more optimistic side of things, the best, I have to go with a little bit of a shout out to a couple people. I almost gave this to TJP, but he hasn't been around as much. I really like Naomi's a lot, and there were a lot of really good WrestleMania ones, but I gotta go with the one I wrote from the very beginning of the year, Chris Jericho's Festival of Friendship entrance. That was
good. Yeah.
Amazing. His hamming it up, doing the whole hat flip and everything was just like the best, cheesiest thing that they could have done with that. I thought that was the easiest award that I give out of almost anything this entire year.
Well, I guess I'll go with the best next. I went with Bobby Roode's entrance from NXT TakeOver Orlando.
Ooh, that's another good one.
I like the I think that was the one where they had like the keyboard playing, like the synthesizer, and there were 2 pianists as well playing before he entered as well. It was I mean, all of Bobby Roode's entrances, especially when he was in NXT, were like really stand out, really showy entrances. But this one I thought was the best out of the lot of them. And to be fair, it's been a difficult year for entrances in general, just due to the fact they've been cutting back on pyro more and more. It's hard to really stand out, and I think Roode stands out above essentially everybody else's at this point.
Especially when he's on a big podium. Really stands out there.
Didn't really get that this year, unfortunately.
Calen or Paden?
I'd say the one that gave me the biggest pop, even though it wasn't anything special. It was a surprise return when the Hardys came at WrestleMania. That was pretty cool. I definitely marked out for that. But I wouldn't necessarily pick that as my best entrance. I'd probably go also with WrestleMania. I'm also counting the exit and entrance. It's Undertaker, because that was basically the last time we're going to see that. It's always impressive. I always get the chills every time I see Undertaker's entrance, and especially the whole aftermath of him leaving the ring and everything. It was very significant. Got to give it to Taker.
You are in luck, Calen, because you're probably going to see it again in like 2 weeks.
I hope not. I think that would have been the best way to end. I know he's going to come back for the, 5 millionth Raw or something, but
78th anniversary.
Yep.
What do you got for the best, Paden?
Best entrance, I just did a catch-all for Bobby Roode. I didn't choose one in particular, but he's a guy they really put a lot of effort into. In the same way that they put a lot of effort into Finn Balor's early entrances, they put a ton of effort into Bobby Roode's early entrances. And they haven't quite carried up for him as much on the main roster, but I think he also hasn't had that big-time match. If he does get like a big one-on-one match at WrestleMania, I am stoked to see what they have in store for him.
Oh, man, if it gets like him defending the United States title against Randy Orton or something like that, where they actually like invest a little bit of time into it instead of throwing him into the Battle Royal or something like that, yeah, that's going to be a great fucking entrance.
Can you just imagine like 50,000 plus people singing that song together? And they'll probably have a choir there, but they wouldn't even need them because the whole crowd can do it.
That not only is that going to be fun, but talking about the crowd going nuts with a theme, this year the crowd singing Nakamura's theme is going to be great. That's going to be another really good one. This is a new category that I added this year around that I am surprised I didn't think of in the years prior to it. The best, and you can kind of refer to it a couple different ways, best clothing, best ring attire, ring gear, whatever you want to call it, the best outfit sort of the year. And it could be something that they wear to the ring and then they take off, or it could be something that they wear while they're wrestling. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a clarification between those two. I went with, for the worst, Killian Dane. That dude, holy shit, does he look gross. And this is almost sort of like a lack of a ring gear than it is actual, like, your ring gear is bad, but he needs to wear something that covers up that fucking horrible hair that he has all over the place. And I came very close to giving this to Becky Lynch at Backlash because she had that weird afro thing going on and stuff. But man, Killian Dane, he is just the grossest looking out of everybody on the roster. And they have this like little diaper thing that they put him in, which just accentuates everything the wrong way. And I hate it. I hate it so much. But there's a lot of other people that we could pick on this, so I'm kind of curious if somebody picks one of the other ones that I was thinking about. So have at it. Who wants to go next?
I'll go with my worst attire is Kane since his return. Just because he's wearing the same stuff that he used to, but he seems considerably fatter than he used to be. So it's just this really like unflattering singlet with his gut just sticking about a foot out of his body. Just doesn't look good at all. He needs to be wearing something which is covering a lot more of him. Maybe just revert back to more of like an all-over body piece. Just because I can't stand to see his body right now.
Hey, it could be worse. He could wear that just the pants and not the shirt that he used to wear.
I don't know if that would even be like better, because at least it would just be like the whole body was uncovered. It's just the fact that you can see that the straps are like straining against trying to hold his gut in.
Paden, Calen?
I'll say that my worst clothing attire is Enzo Amore. Everything he wears is just stupid as hell. I'm so over Enzo. I wish Big Cass would come back, because maybe then I'd like Enzo some more. But just pick an outfit. Any one of his outfits. They're stupid as hell.
And Paden?
My worst outfit, I am going to go with Jason Jordan. Besides the fact that the colors are awful, they're always these like nitro greens and purples and weird stuff. The outfit in general just looks terrible on him. Like he's got these weird shorts and then he has the low top shoes. And I don't know, he just doesn't look right with that outfit on. It's not flattering for him. I think he should go back to something more like the full singlet, like his Pappy wore and like he used to wear back in the tag team days. But that's my worst. My best, how could best dressed go to anybody else but the Velveteen Dream?
He was very close to my best.
That guy just has incredible style. Those sunglasses he wears are freaking awesome. I want to know where I can get myself a pair. And the guy's got style. There's no better word for it.
I ended up just barely picking Billie Kay over him for best, because there's something about her ring attire that I think works really, really well in like this understated kind of... She differentiates herself from the rest of the roster. She doesn't wear something that everybody else wears, and it kind of works with her character really well, and it looks a little bit different, and I like that a lot. I'm very surprised, by the way, that nobody picked Cassius Ohno for worst. I thought that somebody would.
That is a really horrendous outfit.
It is, isn't it? Just wearing this like jersey that looks like he had it like shrunk by accident or something.
To be fair, what do you put on him?
I don't know, a cardboard box or something. They got to think of some other options. That's not working the way that it is. Well, I did my best. Paden did his best. So, Calen or Callum, what are your best?
Well, my best is it's kind of a an obvious one, but I'll go with Naomi. I like the fluorescent thing. I've always never been her biggest fan in terms of her ring work or promo ability, but the entrance is fantastic, and it's the fluorescent glowing attire that really makes it stand out. So yeah, I think that is probably the biggest part of a character that I'm in favor of.
Naomi's a good one. I hadn't thought of that, but for my best, I'm going to go with the New Day, because I really like how they accessorize. They got the three of them always coordinating, and the fans really love it. Always buying the unicorn horns and shit. So going with the New Day. I like what they got going on.
You know what takes them out of the running for me? Xavier Woods' shoes.
What's wrong with his shoes?
I hate those so much.
Jesus.
I'm going to pivot a little bit to the best and the worst signature maneuver. It doesn't have to be necessarily their finisher. It could be one of their setup moves or something like that. Man, I had basically two things written down for worst. And it was tough to decide, but my decision came down to which one have we seen more often. I almost gave this to one particular move that happened one time, and I thought to myself, is that really a signature maneuver if it never caught on? Which was Luke Harper's attempt at a discus clothesline at Backlash. They were clearly trying to make that a new finisher, and it was just terrible. But in the grand scheme of things, the Bayley to belly, to me, is my least favorite signature maneuver. She's too tiny to pull off that kind of a thing, and I just don't buy it at all. It's not something that's like fun and energetic. It doesn't look like it would really hurt. It's something that just seems odd. I don't like it at all. Yeah, so that's my worst. What do you guys got for your worst?
For my worst, I'm going to go with Big Show's knockout punch, just because it's boring. I mean, I get it. He's a big guy. He hits hard. But closed fist hits are supposed to be forbidden anyway. Like, lame. Come on. Big Show.
Didn't they officially say that it wasn't forbidden anymore?
Did they? I don't remember.
I think they did. I think they did like right around the time that Big Show did that punch, actually. I don't know. Either way, it's still a punch.
Yep.
The old international.
Oh, funnily enough, my worst signature maneuver is also punches, but it's not the Big Show's. It's Shane McMahon's punches.
Oh, I forgot about that. Oh, damn.
Yeah,
he
that's
has
a good
the
one.
worst, fakest, least impressive strikes in the entire, in the entire WWE, probably in history. And the fact is, he always has to deliver like 10 in a row, and none of them connect properly. And the ones that do look like they legitimately hurt the person that they're hitting. So it's just, I don't know why he does it.
It's very cartoony.
It's pretty bad that that's like legitimately a signature maneuver of his is bad punches. Like, it's not like he botches it once in a while. It's like, no, everybody just knows. Like, oh, here he goes with those lame ass punches again. You know, like.
I almost went with Charlotte's natural selection, because I never liked that when that was her like main finisher. But because she started doing it less, it's less obnoxious now.
Paden, round us out with the worst.
Jinder Mahal's Colossus. He just picks him up and drops him. Doesn't even pick him up over his head. He just like picks him up and he drops him down.
Yeah, and he can't even do that correctly like half the time as well. Because like the one that he did at Nakamura at SummerSlam, he just didn't actually grab hold of him at all. So basically, Nakamura just had to jump in the air and fall backwards.
There's a lot you can find to complain about Jinder Mahal's forced run into the main event. They could have came up with such a better fit. I mean, how hard was it just to give him a freaking camel clutch? How tough is that?
Does Rusev still use that as a finisher?
Yeah. Well, yeah, but he doesn't
really
finish
seem
it.
to ever do it anymore.
He doesn't really finish in a lot of matches now, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like he does that kick more than anything, which is like, how many kicks do we need? Oh, man, I didn't forget about that. Seth Rollins' kick. That's another one of the worst. That weird, like, knee strike thing that he does.
Oh. The move that doesn't have a name.
Yeah. Oh, man, I might need to change that Bailey to Belly. Well, for right now, I'm keeping it there, but that's pretty bad, too. That Seth Rollins finisher is awful. Best-wise, though, I don't think anybody's going to go with this one. I kind of wanted to give credit to something that I think was a little bit underrated. Neville's Rings of Saturn. I buy that a lot as being a really painful move. Not like the flashiest, not something that people are going to be like, oh man, that's like the coolest move to see, but, you know, he locks that in, and I'm like, all right, I buy it. I buy that they're tapping out to this. It looks like it would hurt like a son of a bitch. So
he got it over really well, too. Like, I remember when he was first going into that heel turn, he would go and tease that he was going to go do the
red arrow.
The red arrow, and then he would just be like, nah, and step down, and then just grab the person and throw on the Rings of Saturn, and then it's just like, oh, God, that poor person.
Yeah. I like that move quite a bit. I hope that he comes back.
It's given me a greater appreciation of Perry Saturn.
Well, I do like the cow trunks. Ahead of his time. Cow. Who wants to go next for best?
I had a few in the running. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. My one is quite boring, but I decided to go with the move, the signature move that I think has been protected the most this entire year, which is the F5. They've done a really good job of essentially saying if Brock Lesnar hits the F5, no matter who his opponent is, they're not going to kick out. And obviously, we all know that's probably leading to WrestleMania, where Roman Reigns is the person that eventually kicks out of the F5. But I think when Lesnar came back, they didn't protect the F5 as much as they should have done. People like Triple H or John Cena were kicking out left and right from it. But now it seems like a legitimate finishing move at a time where people kick out of WWE finishing moves all the time.
Fair enough.
I have a few in the running. Honorable mention to AJ Styles for both the Phenomenal Forearm and the Styles Clash. I like both of those. I almost went with my best being Strowman's running power slam. I like when he hits that. But for the best, got to give it to my man Kevin Owens for his pop-up power bomb. I think that actually got my award last year too.
I think that might have gotten it last year for me, but I'm not too sure. I do like that pop-up power bomb, especially on the apron. That looks like that really hurts. What you got, Paden?
This is a move I always really liked, and not too many people have done it, but when they do, almost anyone who does it, it looks painful and it's impressive. And I'm shocked I'm going to say it for This Is Who Done It, but I really enjoyed Enzo Amore's Jaw Dunzo. And it's got a really clever name.
I do like the name. I have to admit that.
And he also had the DDG, also clever name.
Enzo's actually going to get a little bit of praise from me a little bit later on.
Oh, God.
In certain ways.
Wash your mouth out with soap.
He's not in either of my for spot and botch of the year, though. The best or the coolest spot, the worst or the biggest botch, class defined it that kind of a way. I had a bunch of things written down here, and I hope I'm not stepping on anybody's toes, but I'm going to say some opinions out here for the worst. I had written down 2 different times this year, JBL tripped. One of them was on the January 17th edition of SmackDown, and the other one was the Elimination Chamber pre-show, where he was like, one of them he was trying to help Jerry Lawler, and he ended up doing that, and the other one he was just sort of like, I think doing that like little jig or something. But one that I thought really came close was Goldberg banging his head on a fucking locker, bleeding, and trying to cut a promo where he's just sort of all like, wow, man, I don't know where the fuck I am, kind of give myself a concussion here, kind of thing. Ultimately, I had to decide between the 2 times that somebody got their teeth knocked out. Jeff Hardy happened to Payback, and that was pretty bad, but Cesaro wins for me. Him getting his teeth knocked out at No Mercy, god damn, man. Who does one of the lamest moves in wrestling, the slingshot, and ends up knocking their teeth out like that? He just overshot, and it was hilarious, and it looked like it was painful as hell. And ever since that's happened, that botch, Cesaro now always has that mouth guard in, and he can't cut a promo without just being like, so that had major repercussions and stuff. And
a little late for wearing the guard.
Yeah, I just thought that out of all the botches that have happened this year, that's the one that I think has the biggest lasting impact and was particularly the most brutal to watch that I could think of at the very least. But some other opinions out there, I'm sure they're going to think of some other fun ones too. But what do you guys got?
That's actually what I had too. I had Cesaro's teeth from No Mercy. That was the first thing that popped in my head. And I was trying to think of other things, and it kept coming back to that because that was so like stomach churningly brutal. And it wasn't. See, it would have been better had it actually knocked out his teeth, but it didn't. It knocked them up into his jaw. Ugh.
Yeah, we thought at the beginning of the year, we're like, oh man, Jeff Hardy lost part of a tooth. Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, right.
A couple months later, it's just kind of like, oh man, Cesaro lost his mouth. Paden, what do you got? Or Callum, whoever wants to go.
Well, I'm just going to go ahead and agree with all of you because I had the same thing, that Cesaro getting his teeth knocked up. And the biggest shame of that is that it came during a really badass match.
Yeah, that was
it's still finished really good.
Yeah.
So major kudos to Cesaro, because I guarantee you, like 2/3 of, not even saying like the general population, because if it was the general population, it'd be like 95%, but 2/3 of that wrestling roster wouldn't have finished that match.
No, they would have ended up being like, okay, let me crawl out to the outside, have somebody look at me, and then we're going to stop the match and be like, especially because they're bleeding and they got to put on the gloves and everything. Cesaro's just like, nah, fuck that. Let's keep doing like a 4-star match here.
Why don't they push this guy? I know it's the common thing, but like, can you have any more of a company guy than a guy who does that?
Yeah.
And it's not even a world title match. It's a tag team title match.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're putting him in the spot that you relegate for most people where you go, yeah, we don't know what to do with you. I don't know, you fucking tag division. And he's like, all right, great. That's pretty awesome.
And they didn't even get to go over either.
Yeah, they lost.
They went in there and just, lost.
What do you got for this, Callum?
I guess I'll be the one that differs then. That was definitely on my list, as well as the other ones that you mentioned, Tony. One that was close to me is from back in Elimination Chamber. Mauro Ranallo on commentary kept referring to it as Hell in a Cell rather than Elimination Chamber. So he was just botching that all over the place. But the one that I decided to go with is more of a WWE botch more than an in-ring botch, which is WWE's decision to start the first kickoff match at SummerSlam in front of a essentially half-empty arena.
Yeah.
This thing that sticks out in my mind is like, what the hell were they thinking?
Like, that's true, because botch doesn't necessarily have to be like a move that gets messed up. I mean, it could be a botch of a booking decision, and that was really bad.
Oh, I thought of another one. The whole Sister Abigail thing that they were going to do. I'll put that on there.
That'll be coming up later on.
Okay.
Oh, also wanted to give a special mention to Jimmy Jacobs for posting an Instagram photo of the Bullet Club and getting himself fired for it. So that was a pretty big botch on his end.
Yeah,
Oops.
I don't know. I think he might have done that on purpose.
You'd hope so. It was pretty stupid otherwise.
Was this year the year where JBL got called out on saying structure like 1,000 times? I think that it was.
I don't remember.
You're stretching my memory a little bit there.
Yeah, it was Bring It to the Table, and they were calling him out. It might have been Hell in a Cell. It might not have been. I don't know. But that was another thing I thought was kind of funny. On the best side of things, what was like the coolest spot of the year instead of a botch and stuff? I had a bunch that it was hard for me to kind of actually pick for a couple of them. And I'm not going to list them all in case people have them. But I ended up having to pick between two of them, and I leaned just slightly in the direction of Braun Strowman flipping the ambulance on Monday Night Raw. That was planned, and you could tell that it wasn't all his own strength, but it was still so cool when it happened. Like, I mean, a lot of times when we're doing the chats on Mega Maniacs, a lot of people aren't really talking, because this year in particular, a lot of people haven't been too invested in the product, and they're kind of like sick and tired of seeing things. And that was one of those things where everybody's just like, holy shit, you see what's fucking happening here? That was a real good start for Strowman being like a really cool attraction for this year. And he did a bunch of other things too. I mean, I loved even just like when he threw Kalisto in the dumpster and like throw Big Show through the cage and stuff like that. And there were a lot of cool things ambulance related that were on top of that too. But I ended up giving it to the flipping of the ambulance. I think that deserves a lot of credit. But I got some other things I'll mention if people don't mention him, but go for it, whoever wants to go.
I'll go. Yeah, I could say a lot of stuff that Strowman did. You know, the ambulance was on my list, the whole garbage truck thing, going through the ring and, you know, throwing Big Show through the cage. Big throw. It's the big throw. But I think the one that made me laugh the most was when he just was throwing chairs at Roman Reigns, because that was just totally unexpected. It was just like, oh, here's Roman Reigns. Oh, and he fucking threw a chair at him. I don't know, and
it wasn't even like a steel chair. It was like one of those big office chairs.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to give it to the chair because I don't think anyone else is going to say that.
No, that wasn't on my list. I forgot about that.
I was torn between two. Obviously, Braun Strowman has done a lot this year, but he wasn't in the end on my list. The one that came really close to me was Tyler Bates' airplane spin on Pete Dunne at Takeover Chicago.
Oh, I didn't think about that one. Yeah,
he was going like ridiculously fast. It was the most impressive airplane spin I've ever seen. Like, it actually got the crowd invested to the point where they thought that was actually going to win the match for him. But the one I went for, because I'm a mark for the Revival, is back from Takeover Orlando, where it was the triple threat tag team match for the NXT tag titles between Revival, Authors of Pain, and DIY. DIY and the Revival started switching partners to do their finishing moves on both Authors of Pain members. And because I was just such a huge fan of their rivalry, I thought, oh my God, they're actually showing respect and working together. And it's like, I remember marking out to that probably more than any other like move or moment in WWE this year.
Oh, that's definitely an underdog moment. I wouldn't have thought about something like that. What do you got, Paden?
I gotta scroll up. The spot of the year, that's what we're doing, right?
Yep.
For me, it was during the NXT Wargames match. They had that giant cluster of everybody coming together for this double tower powerbomb spot, and then you just had Adam Cole standing there looking all smug and raising his arms out to the crowd. I just thought everything visually about that. I mean, just seeing War Games again, the double rings, making use of it all, and then just Adam Cole being a jackass. It was a very cool moment, and that's what I'm going to give to the best spot of the year.
A couple of the things that I had down on my list were Strowman and Big Show breaking the ring, but we've seen it before. It's one of those things where a lot of people will be like bitter about that and just go like, I've seen it happen, you know?
We also kind of called that.
Yeah, I mean, when they were setting up the outside stuff, it was sort of like, oh.
Well, it wasn't even that. I remember we were watching the show, and I remember I was just had this feel like something's different, and I'm not sure what it is. And then finally it hit me, and it was that those big obnoxious screens that they put on the corner ring posts weren't there, and like I'd gotten so used to seeing them, I was like, where the fuck are those things?
Mm-hmm.
And then just how they kept building the match. Oh, we reinforced the ring and all this shit. I was like, oh, it's gonna explode.
One of the other things was Razor being suplexed through the ladder by Tommaso Ciampa at NXT TakeOver Chicago. I thought that was pretty brutal looking. Roman Reigns crashing the ambulance at Great Balls of Fire. I remember laughing at that. And the Jeff Hardy Swanton through the ladders at WrestleMania. Doesn't usually get too much of a pop compared to what he used to, but it's still, something that I ain't fucking doing. That's for sure.
It's funny because Paden's his choice of spot of the actually reminds me of one of my ones I was thinking about for Botch of the Year, which was directly after that spot. They went to a instant replay, but they were doing this thing where Akam and Razor were just going to be staring right at Adam Cole, after he was doing his cocky pose. And then they decided to go to an instant replay, so Akam and Razor had to just drop back down, pretending that they were still hurting, after, just so they could actually get back up and do that spot after the replay had ended.
I gotta rewatch that again. I don't remember that, but that sounds kind of ridiculous. We have the recognition awards here for the most underrated and the most overrated superstars. Let's go with the positive one first here. We keep going negatives. Most underrated superstar of the year. I am going to go with Mickie James. I think that it's kind of crazy that they brought her into the company and she has done nothing for the most part this year. They really took a long time before they gave her anything to sink her teeth into. And even then, it was pretty, pushed aside with that feud with Alexa James, I almost said her. Alexa Bliss. And other than that, what else has she done? Nothing. She barely has even wrestled as a regular person on Raw, which I can understand why they wouldn't give her more of the spotlight kind of stuff, because you want to push Sasha and Bayley and Nia Jax and all the newer people, but shit, there were months where it didn't seem like Mickie was even a part of the roster anymore, and that seems kind of crazy to me. I came very close to giving this to Lince Dorado, who they do the same kind of thing too, they just keep forgetting that he exists. But to me, it's a little bit more problematic to do that with Mickie than Dorado, but I think there's probably a good argument for a lot of underrated people this year. So who you guys got? Who's the most underrated superstar of the year? At least as far as your opinions go.
Although he did hold a title for a while, I think Neville wasn't appreciated as much as he should have been, especially by management, obviously, because he was not happy with how they were booking him, and apparently. I think a lot of fans didn't really give him the recognition he deserved, but he doesn't get my most. My most underrated goes to a guy who has been getting a little more of the spotlight lately, thankfully. And that's Mr. Sami Zayn, a true talent. And most of the year, I feel like he was just kind of an afterthought. It was never really in anything that I thought was worthy of his talent. So going with Mr. Sami Zayn.
Have at it. Whoever wants to
go. Well, I had quite a long list of people that I thought had been underrated. Only Lorcan in NXT, I think, is a fantastic wrestler. I know he looks very generic, but I think in terms of his actual ability in the ring, he's vastly underrated. Big Show this year, I thought, was also someone who really helped Braun Strowman's progression and had some really good matches when people have been calling for his retirement for far too long. I think he really stepped it up this year. In the end, I was so close to going with Sheamus, especially this year, now that he's always been someone that people said it was pushed too much, but now he's in a more of a mid-card role. He's actually been excelling a lot. But then at Clash of Champions, Rusev got the biggest pop of the entire night with his Rusev Day stuff. I've always thought he's one of the most charismatic people on the roster, and I've always thought that he had world championship potential. And I just don't think he's utilised to the best of his ability. So Rusev is my most underrated.
There you go, Dane, if you're listening. All last night kept hearing so much about, but Rusev really, like, you do realize he's the best, right? And like something like that. So I'm sure he's going to appreciate that. Round us out for the most underrated, Paden. Who's the superstar that should have been getting more credit?
Just underrated? You want me to do overrated as well?
Yeah, you could snake around like that, yeah.
Okay.
Why Drew's here?
You're throwing too much on my plate here, man. You talk about someone who does not get the recognition they deserve. The person who comes to my mind this year that really got the shaft, Jim Johnston. This is a guy who was there for decades, has done some of the most important work as far as helping people get over with these amazing themes. And this year they kicked him out, probably didn't even give him a watch, brought in two douchey 20-year-olds making the same shitty beats over and over again to replace him, and never even a mention of it. This guy is there all these years and they barely ever talk about him. This poor guy. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I'm sure he's got tons of money. The guy's won Grammys, and I'm sure if he wants to find work, he can find work. But I feel like that is someone who really deserved better. There's a lot of people who don't even know his name.
We're going to get the whole, wait a minute, Jim Johnston's in the Impact Zone.
It'll be a John Jimston.
Yeah. James Johnson.
Most overrated. For some reason, this is the first name that came to my mind, and I'm just going to put it down. Roderick Strong. A lot of people really talk this guy up, and I haven't seen anything special about him. He is the definition of vanilla midget.
I'm not a big Roderick Strong supporter. I wouldn't give him the most overrated because I don't hear too much buzz about him. But I will kind of piggyback off that and say my choice was Finn Balor. I think that Balor gets far too much credit than what he deserves. He's like kind of fun, and he's got like some stuff that's kind of cool and stuff, but people act like he should have been like some 6-time world champion by now, and I'm like, I'm cool with this dude going on 205 Live. And I shouldn't think that about somebody that should be like, fighting Brock Lesnar at Royal Rumble and stuff. He didn't get that match for a reason.
Hey, Tony, I don't know if you know this, but Finn Balor was the first Universal Champion.
A good 20
only
hours.
It every time that he's on the screen.
He's the type of guy that, like, I understand why he has fans, but I just don't think that he deserves to have such an intense, passionate fan base as much as he does. And eventually, maybe he can get to the point where he can win me over like that. Because I don't think that he's bad. Like, it's not like he's like, some jabroni that I'm like, well, why don't they fire him or anything like that? Nowhere near that. But people act like he's like the guy, like, best of all time type of person sometimes. And I just don't see it. Like, I think even like his ring work is maybe like in the top like 20 of the company. I don't think it's like in the top 5 like a lot of people do and stuff, but yeah, the whole demon character, okay, you put on some face paint and that's it. Like, you're not a different character. He doesn't change up how he does anything. So you get past that entrance, which is still admittedly, like, I have to admit, originally I hated it. I like it enough now that I can understand people liking it. You get past that and it's the same as, I mean, you might as well put out Roderick Strong. Same kind of thing. We got 2 more people, though, for overrated, so the CALs. What you guys got? The Cals.
I had Finn Balor on my short list for most overrated for a lot of the reasons you said also. I also have on my list Enzo Amore, but I have to give him some credit because he can cut a promo. He's entertaining there, but just he doesn't do it for me in the ring. For my most overrated, I'm going to give to Mr. William Goldberg. Yes, he's a legend, but his work in 2017, not up to par.
I had quite a few on my short list. Balor was definitely there. Shinsuke Nakamura was also on my list as someone who I've seen far better from in previous years. and hasn't really lived up to expectations, in my opinion. Naomi was also on my list, and Bray Wyatt as well. But I've decided to go one which is going to get me quite a bit of stick, I think. And I've gone with The Miz as most overrated.
Wow.
I'm a big fan of The Miz, and I do appreciate the fact that he's an excellent talker and his ring work has improved. But I think people are starting to assess him as like one of the all-time greats in WWE at the moment, which I just don't think he is. Especially in 2017, I think he had a very lackluster year in terms of the feuds he was in, the impact they had. I think his promo ability is overrated, just due to the fact that he's an excellent talker, but it's not like any of his promos lead to anything down the line because he can't really back it up in the ring. So if he does have these like amazing, like, look at me promos against the likes of Roman Reigns and John Cena, I don't have any faith that, so he's going to win a feud against those ones, or he's going to have a very competitive feud with them, because at the end of the day, that's what he does. He talks and he loses. And he did that a lot in 2017.
That's surprising.
But
yeah, I disagree. I might put him in my top 10 this year. I don't know.
I think 2016 he definitely would have been in my top 10, maybe even top 5. But I think 2017 he had a bad year. Even if he was Intercontinental Champion for most of it, it's not like he defended it very often. And if he did, it wasn't against very noble people.
I will agree. He was better in the latter half of 2016 than he was in a good portion of 2017. And I mean, the whole point of Overrated is if people disagree and all that, then it kind of might serve the purpose of that. You know what I mean?
Well, I'd just go along the lines of like Rolling Stone named him like Wrestler of the Year for 2017. And I think that's probably
Really?
Yeah. And I think that's probably taking it a bit too far. So that's my kind of, I still think he's very good. Definitely one of the top 15 people in WWE, in my opinion, but just don't think he deserves that level of credit.
We're going to put a pin in this and for another couple categories down, but let's move over to the improvement in a superstar, which is slightly similar, but a little bit different. It's who had the biggest upgrade from last year and who had the most unfortunate downgrade from last year in comparison. So, you know, it's kind of hard to pick people that like this was their first year, like a Mike Kanellis or something, but my biggest downgrade, I hate to admit it, it's the Revival. They were really just, they had such momentum on their side, and the fact that they suffered back-to-back injuries just destroyed their 2017. And I came very, very close to giving this to the Good Brothers, and there's definitely an argument that can be made about that, because they are just doing jack shit. But I felt a little bit more of a sting when it came to the Revival, because I look back on 2017 and I go, man, they had like, going into this year, they seemed like they were going to be like the tag team, and they really should have been, but those injuries just killed them. And unfortunately, that wasn't anything that they could really fix, and it wasn't something like WWE booked them to have those injuries, you know, but that hurt them in the grand scheme of things, and they're going to have to sort of pretend like they didn't even come to the main roster now that they're back. And hopefully people accept them the same that they did before. As far as my biggest upgrade goes, might as well just do things a little bit differently here. Came very close to giving this to Braun Strowman. Can't deny how great Drew Gulak is compared to last year. We made fun of this dude about like how bland and unentertaining he was. He came out with that weird like medieval kind of gear, and he had that beard and that weird Sonic the Hedgehog music, which I like the music, but it didn't seem to fit him at all. He completely changed his character up, and he is one of the most entertaining people in the whole company right now to me. Drew Gulak is amazing. I love this dude. So he gets my upgrade. Unfortunately, Revival gets my downgrade. Paden, I'm going to start off with you. What do you got for those two?
Biggest upgrade for me is Elias. This is a guy who, when he was even all the way to the end of his NXT run, I don't think any of us liked at all. He was barely tolerable being around, And when he was one who got called up, I think we were all relatively surprised that he was one of the ones who got chosen to go up with that class. I think that was a post-WrestleMania night he showed up. But the stuff they were doing with them was like kind of funny. He was just like strolling around back in the back, like playing his guitar, strumming it around, never says anything. Like there'll be something else going on, and all of a sudden you just hear like chords being played off to the side. It's like, oh, there's Elias, the drifter. And then they put him in the ring. And I don't mean to wrestle. I mean to do his little concerts where he's sitting there strumming his guitar. And he has just absolutely been one of the best parts of Raw every week when he's in the ring. When he has special guests come out there and play with him, it's a joy. I've had a blast with Elias this year. I walk with Elias this year. And last year I would have walked in the opposite direction.
All the ladies walk with Elias. I loved that recently. He is really great. I like Elias a lot.
Biggest downgrade to me. I was torn between two names here. One of them I think is an easy one for a lot of people to go with, and that's Bray Wyatt. You're talking about a guy who at the beginning of this year was WWE champion, and last we saw him, he was potentially going to dress in drag. So that's a pretty big fall.
It's funny enough that you have to clarify potentially. Like he didn't even get to do it.
Well, luckily that got canceled. Luckily he got a potentially life-threatening disease that parted him from having to do that. He got rickets or whatever the fuck it was that he got.
Was it meningitis or something?
Yeah, the mumps, I think.
Mumps, yeah, that's what it was.
The person I think I will go with the biggest downgrade, though, and it's because it was someone that, I mean, I don't know if I can say a downgrade based on where he was last year, but based on when he first came in, and to this point now, I've lost a lot of faith and enjoyment out of watching him, and that is Kurt Angle.
Oh,
Kurt Angle
that's
came
not what I
in.
thought you were going to say.
That's a good pick, though. I like that a lot.
Yeah, Kurt Angle is one of my favorites of all time, and he's usually a very charismatic dude, very funny guy, great comedic timing, but everything he's done since he's come back has just been more and more awkward. They got this weird bastard son storyline, and then he gets his balls chopped off by Stephanie. He comes out in weird Shield gear. He just hasn't had good performances in the ring, which I understand. He's not the Kurt Angle of old, but he has not had a good year. And I think we may still see improvement from Kurt, but 2017, not a good year for Kurt Angle.
That's a really, really good pick. I didn't even think about that. I was looking through the normal roster, totally forgot about the whole managerial side of things. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he came in and it was like, man, Kurt Angle's going to come back. And like, we've been waiting for years for this. And it's like, now at the end of 2017, it's like, we've been waiting for years for this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But at the end of the day, can you still consider it a downgrade when a year prior he was in TNA? So
yeah.
If you go from rehab to WWE, it's a little bit of a step up, kind of.
I'm happy to have him back.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather have him than not have him, but
right.
Yeah,
I agree. I just think his character work has been atrocious, and I hope he gets better.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah. Well, I actually am gonna have to shit on him a little bit later on for something else, but again, put a pin on that. Callum? Cals?
In terms of like biggest improvement, one that I was very close to going for was Brock Lesnar, just because I thought his 2016 was terrible, and I wouldn't say his 2017 has been stellar, but it's definitely been a lot better than it was last year.
I'd agree.
And
with
then
that.
the one that I was another one that I was really, really close to going for was the Fashion Police.
Oh, that's another good pick, yeah.
Because they went from absolutely nothing to being one of them, for a short time, the most entertaining part of SmackDown. But I decided to go with the Usos. Because at the start of 2016, or definitely around about the middle part of 2016, a lot of people were just willing to give up on them and say, why are you still in WWE? You're just as generic as you always have been. In 2016, they had the heel turn, but it only just started to gain momentum in 2017. And now, in my mind, they're undisputably the best tag team in the world right now, let alone in WWE. So I have to give them props for improving both in the ring and on the microphone.
I think this year they solidified that they are a Hall of Famer team.
Definitely. Biggest downgrade. Bray Wyatt was definitely high on my list of considerations. Chad Gable was also on my list as well. Somebody that obviously with American Alpha had a lot of potential, and I thought would be the breakout star out of the two of them. And now he's just gone into a bootleg version of American Alpha with Shelton Benjamin. But I decided to go with Bayley. Just because 2016, we thought that when she came up to the main roster, you couldn't possibly fuck up Bayley. Well, guess what? They fucked up Bayley. To the point where you still do get behind her. She's still not dead and buried by any stretch of the imagination, but imagine like the pop that she should be getting, because she should really be like the female equivalent to John Cena in his most popular days. And now she barely gets a reaction at this point. She's just another person.
Can't disagree. Was this the year that she was champion? Yeah, she was, right?
Yeah,
she beat Charlotte at the beginning of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and now I don't want her to win the championship again. I don't think she merits it.
Round us out, Calen. What do you got?
For biggest downgrade, let's see. It's hard to say. I mean, Bray Wyatt's a good one, but I think in order to count as biggest downgrade, you have to start at a certain level, and he was never really that high in my book at the beginning of the year anyway. I would have to go with somebody who I was really high on in NXT, and he debuted on SmackDown right after WrestleMania, and there was a lot of hype, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Unfortunately, I hate to say it, but he's kind of fallen flat for me, especially lately. I mean, he is an excellent, excellent wrestler, but for some reason, it doesn't have that same kind of magic like he used to. And maybe it's just seeing him so often now. Maybe he's better in small doses. I think that might be it. That his programs haven't been so great. We'll get to mic work later, but I don't know. I've been disappointed with Nakamura on the main roster, so I'll go with Nakamura.
And upgrade?
Biggest upgrade. Yeah, that's right. I guess we are doing both. Like I mentioned, Sami Zayn before, as far as being underrated. So I would say I'm glad they actually have him with Owens now. I like what they're doing together. So I think that's definitely an improvement. But for upgrade, I'm going to go with a guy who was in the Royal Rumble and was eliminated, I thought, too early, and that is Braun Strowman. He's doing some of the best stuff in the whole company. And although he's been kind of in the spotlight in the main event the whole time, I don't think he's stayed flat or gone down. I think if anything, he just keeps going up and up and up every week. So I got to give my upgrade to Mr. Strowman.
He's not finished improving.
That's right.
I think just before we move on, an honourable mention has to be made to Jinder Mahal. Just from a storyline perspective, more than just actually genuine improvement in the ring, to go from a jobber to WWE champion in the course of a year.
If you're talking kayfabe improvement, that is a huge jump.
Oh, yeah. Kayfabe wise is probably the top.
His actual quality didn't coincide.
No, unfortunately.
Best and the worst ring work. Self-explanatory. Don't really need to go into that. And I don't think I really even need to explain my best. AJ Styles.
Same.
Anybody got anything different?
I do. AJ was definitely... AJ was definitely a very close second. But I have to go Roman Reigns. I know, it sounds weird.
I was like, wait a minute, this is a joke, right?
No, in terms of like big match performances, I don't think there's anyone better than Roman Reigns in WWE.
Yeah. I am one of Roman Reigns' biggest defenders, and I am shaking my head at you right now. I agree. Roman Reigns is severely underrated in big match scenarios.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
But he's no fucking AJ Styles.
Yeah.
I mean, I know saying this right now, I'm feeling a little bit stupid, but everyone else is going for AJ Styles. I want to give Roman Reigns some credit for it this year.
You got Styles too, Paden?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Worst, I think we have a little bit more flexibility when it comes to this. I went with Dana Brooke. I really came close to giving this to Marty Bell, but she only had one bad match. Dana Brooke hasn't improved at all in her entire run in WWE. I don't remember her having a single decent match. She's just, like, not good. Period.
But we don't see her that much, so I think
we see her enough that I think that it's like, by now you should have figured out more. I'm going to crap on her a little bit later too, but
there was a period, I want to say a year or so ago, where she was showing some improvement. I want to give her credit for that at least. And then she kind of hit a wall again. And maybe that's just the wall of her abilities, or maybe they lost focus on her because they had this influx of so many other women, so she wasn't getting the proper attention to learn. But she is just someone who really needs to head back to NXT and learn some more. I don't think she's horrendous. I don't think she's beyond help, but I do think she needs it. Yeah.
Yeah, she went from being somebody who, like, you could tell was really green when she first started, which is fine because she just started. And then you started to go, like, maybe they got something here. Because, you know, she was doing that flip when she was coming out for the entrance, and, like, her body looked better then. Like, now she kind of, I don't know, not to say, like, she let herself go, because it's not like she's, like, you know, some obese, out of shape type person or something like that, but, like, she really did just downgraded almost everything ever since, like, her height was pretty much when she was with Emma originally, I think.
I don't think she body builds anymore.
Maybe that's it.
So I think that's why you might have noticed her shape change.
I think, like, her intensity went down, and maybe her motivation too. Maybe she kind of, like, lost a lot of confidence, and they need to do something to pick it back up, but I don't think that this Titus Worldwide stuff is going to fix the problem. And in any capacity, the ring work stuff, she's just not doing it for me. Yeah, I looked at all the other men and women, and she's the one that stood out to me the most, but there's plenty of cases for plenty of other people, I'm sure. I'm not expecting anybody else to pick Dana Brooke, but who do you guys got? Who's the worst in the ring?
Dana was close to me, got called close in my estimations for worst. But I decided I hadn't seen enough of her, and I don't watch her matches and like rear back and say, "Oh, this is terrible" all the time. At the moment, I think Tamina is the worst in the ring, and I judge that based on the fact that occasionally she can have a decent match, but she's 40 years old and she's been in WWE for nearly 10 years, and she's only that good. Her father was Jimmy Snuka. Like, she's supposed to have some sort of, like, I don't know, some genetic ability, and she's been around the business for so long, and she has only ever reached a certain level. It baffles me that she's still in WWE at this point. So yeah, I just don't think her status merit is based on her ring work, and I don't really know what else to base it on at that point.
Calen, Paden?
I also had Tamina, but I want to pick somebody else, so I'm not copying. So I am going to get shit for this, but I'm going to go with a guy who probably spent, I don't know, all of 2 minutes in the ring this year, but also held the championship. Bill Goldberg. I used to like him 10, 15 years ago, but now not so much. So, yeah, giving it to Goldberg. Just he was in there. He would get winded, right away. He couldn't do more than 2 moves at a time, and it's just not what I wanted to see in 2017.
What was the amount of time that he spent in the ring? Do you think, like, the estimation? Because it was something like
before his WrestleMania match, it was like a minute and a half, I think.
Yeah, it was under 10 minutes definitely for the entire year.
Yeah, it has to be. Which
the WrestleMania one was his longest one, and then
I kind of vaguely remember that being under 5 minutes.
Yeah, it was under 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
Ugh. Got to make those seconds count.
That was very disappointing for me.
Who's your worst ring work of the year, Paden?
Well, in defense of Bill Goldberg, he did what he needed to do. There's no more that really honestly should have been expected from him. But there are a lot of people that you should have higher expectations for. And that's from more of the younger guys and more of the people that are the up and comers and the people that they're giving opportunities to. And if I look at someone who got opportunities, many opportunities, in fact, and was utter trash, and he just comes off as very lethargic, which is just mind-boggling considering his gimmick is supposed to be that he's full of energy. And that is Mojo Rawley. The guy's garbage, and I can't believe he's gotten to the level that he's at. The guy, they gave him the Battle Royal this year and then did absolutely nothing, and then they're finally trying to do something again now, and it's I hate the guy. And he's ugly. He's got a weird face. I don't know what it is exactly, but there's something weird about his face.
I think he just looks like one of those guys. Like, you don't even need to finish the sentence. He's just one of those guys.
He's one of those guys, yeah.
Well, that's the in-ring work. The mic work, obviously, the, talking on the stick and everything like that. Worst, I'm going to go Tamina. She was atrocious on the microphone this year. She barely seemed like she could speak proper English more than Shinsuke Nakamura.
Oh, yeah, Tony? Well, you seem like you can't speak English better than Shinsuke Nakamura.
I mean, I don't remember which promo it was that Tamina had done. Like, it was around, like, Money in the Bank, I think, or something like that. But there was, like, a bunch of people in the ring, and somebody, like, Carmella or whatever, was like, oh, yeah, Becky? Well, why don't I teach you a lesson? And then Tamina's like, oh, yeah? Well, Becky, why don't I teach you a lesson? And just kind of, like, put her head down, like, oh, I said somebody else's line. And it was like, oh, man, that was the Kalisto Good Lucha thing of this year in my mind. So bad. And I really don't like Sarah Logan on the mic, but she's just brand new for this, so I'm going to give her a little bit of a, cut her some slack here. Tamina, she has no excuse. She's been in the company for like 8 years. Learn to talk at this point, Woof. That was bad. I might as well go with the best, and we'll double it up. My best, I'm going to go with The Miz. I think that he has been so fun calling people out on their shit this year. Like, his stuff with the John Cena feud at WrestleMania was the only thing interesting in that whole feud. And him calling out Dean Ambrose for being lazy and cutting these, like, kind of shoot style promos and stuff. I had more fun listening to that than pretty much anybody else on the mic this year. And we had really good stuff with Jericho. We had really good stuff with Owens. And out of everybody, Miz stood out to me. He's my favorite. So Miz and Tamina, opposite ends of the spectrum, as far as I'm concerned. Callum, let's go with you. Who you got? Best and worst?
For worst, again, there was quite a few options. I always went with Jinder Mahal until the last couple of months of the year. His promos did start to improve a little bit from the kind of raspy voice stuff that he was doing very early on in his title reign. He seemed to just he seemed to just go for like 2 sentences and then he just lost his voice halfway through. And Tamina's obviously quite high up there. But at least Tamina has the good grace to not talk very often. Someone who does talk a hell of a lot and is absolutely terrible at it is Natalya. She is so wooden. She can't act at all. The fact that her character is so obnoxious, which I know is the point, so maybe it's actually working on me, but even when she was trying to be a babyface as well during parts of this year, or no matter what she was doing, I just couldn't stand listening to her at all. So it wasn't like, oh, you're being such a great heel. It's more of a case of, oh, I really can't. My ears are bleeding. Please stop talking. Best. This is great, obviously, but I'm not going to go for him. Kevin Owens was also someone who's always been so natural and excellent on the microphone. But I have to go with, again, an easy answer, Paul Heyman. His stuff hyping Brock Lesnar's matches this year has been as outstanding as it always is. And I think when he's on the microphone, people are always listening because he is just so good at promoting.
Yes, Paul Heyman is on my list of best also. I didn't give him the number one spot. Also have to give shout out to The Miz. I have to give a shout out to Enzo Amore. Because God damn it, these cats. I don't know if you can hear that. They are fighting. But I said Paul Heyman, The Miz, Enzo Amore. On the women's side, Alexa Bliss definitely is great on the mic.
Very much so.
Mm-hmm.
But my number one spot goes to Mr. Kevin Owens. He's always gold on the mic. I love it when he cuts promos. So put him on the mic more often. Good old KO.
Who you got for worst?
For worst, I have
Energetic there. For worst.
Man, I kind of forgot about that Tamina promo until you guys mentioned it again. I tried to block it out of my memory, I guess. So she was not on my list, but obviously shout out for that. My worst goes to, and it's because of the communication, the language barrier, Mr. Shinsuke Nakamura. He should have a manager or a spokesperson or something because he is not good. And I understand. Yes, he's from Japan. He speaks I'm sure if he were cutting promos in Japanese, he'd be awesome. But English is not his strong suit. So I'm going to go with Mr. Shinsuke Nakamura.
Who you got, Paden?
I'm going to go with someone who does not have a language barrier problem. It's someone who has no damn reason why he shouldn't be speaking English. And, well, he speaks English, but he doesn't speak it very well, and that's Baron Corbin. He's just like a big dumb jock, and I guess that's his gimmick, but when he talks, he just comes across like an imbecile. So, I'm going to
go back to Ring of Honor, Paden.
Yeah. Okay.
Poor Baron Corbin. He gets shit on for his hairline, for his stomach, and how he talks.
Well, he fucking sucks, dude.
I know, it's just funny.
For best, I really want to give it to Matt Hardy, but I feel like he's just coming into the Matt Hardy that we want to see too recently, and I feel like it needs more time. I know what he's capable of, and that's well and good, but we need to see how this plays out more. So when I look back on the year, the person that I actually want to give the best mic work to, and again, I can't believe I'm going to do this, Enzo Amore. This guy saved a division and a show. As good as Neville did when he was around and also highly improved on the microphone, the show had other stuff going on. There were other characters there that had some buzz and some interest on them. And the show itself even just had the whole cruiserweight division still had a buzz around it. By the time Neville was finished, that was gone. Austin Aries is gone. That show was on death's door. And then here comes Enzo Amore out of nowhere, doing the best work of his career so far. Everyone thought he was done after Cass was gone. And he just really lit it all on fire. His outfit still sucked.
Enzo's one of those people that we have to kind of, throughout this whole set of awards, we're going to be like, God damn it, I got to give him credit for this and stuff. And he is going to pop up a couple times here and there. Speaking of the idea of hating that you have to admit something like that, the best and the worst title reign of the year, it sucks that I gotta say it, but I have to eat some crow. The best title reign of this year is Brock Lesnar's Universal title reign. I hate the idea of Lesnar holding that title for a whole year and stuff, but he's defended it enough times, and the matches have been good enough. And really, who else in my mind could I think of? Neville, maybe? His Cruiserweight Championship reign was pretty good, but this was a year of trading belts around like crazy. We had something like 53 title changes this year, and last year we had about 30. So that's kind of nuts. And out of all the people switching things back and forth, Lesnar was the one constant for the most part. So I hate to admit it, but don't tell Wago. Brock Lesnar's Universal title reign, I guess the best for me. The worst, on the other side, Sasha Banks' Raw Women's Championship match. Not match. This was the fourth time that Sasha won a title on Raw, or
she won
separately, like the brand itself.
All right.
She won that and then lost it immediately afterward. 4 times out of 4. At this point, if Sasha wins another title, I'm just going to expect that. And yeah, it happens once. Okay, it happens twice. Wow, that's kind of crazy. The third time, holy shit. But the fourth time,
that's the kicker.
At that point, it's beyond saving. and that hurt Sasha Banks in my mind so much this year. You have a lot of people like Akira Tozawa that won that title and lost it immediately. Jericho and Styles, they did that whole United States title switch up and stuff. Sasha's was the one that it was the quickest that hurt somebody the most, I think.
Oh yeah, it damaged her credibility, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So, have at it, anybody. Best and worst title reigns of the year. What you guys got?
For my best, I have the man who held the Cruiserweight title for a while, and that would be Mr. Neville. I really liked that. Yeah, I think his run with the Cruiserweight title was one of the best things in any of the title scenes. Miz gets the shout out too, because I know Callum doesn't agree, but I liked what he did with the IC title. He held it for quite a long time. From
Don't
like
hold
June.
this against me for the rest of like.
Well, we know that you hate the Miz.
No, Neville definitely gets my vote for best, and I hope he comes back soon too. For my worst, I know people are gonna give me shit for this too, but I gotta go with Jinder. Not a fan. I don't think he deserved it. I was willing at first to give him a chance. And he did all right. He did better than so I got to give him more credit than I originally thought he would do. But I don't think he deserved to hold it as long as he did. So I got to say worst was Jinder. It was an experiment, sure, but not so great.
Paden, you're going Neville as well for best?
Oh, yeah, Neville for best, for sure. I don't know if anyone had a buzz around them being champion as much as he did. I mean, Brock Lesnar, of course, that's always going to be a box office bomb. Well, I mean, a bomb, like it's
yeah,
you know what
good.
I mean. Good, yeah.
He done good.
He done good. Neville was on fire the first half of this year, and while I say Enzo reignited it, that's because he had to after Neville was sustaining it for so long. Neville was the key player, not just in the Cruiserweight division, but pretty much on Raw too. Neville was one of the best things going on. For worst, I'm going to give the unfortunate road bump through all that, and that was when Tozawa won it. And I think you make a good argument for Sasha. I think they're both very similar cases, but that women's title was being bounced around a lot, and it didn't really matter where it was going at that point. That Cruiserweight belt never should have left Neville.
No, I like Tozawa, but that shouldn't have happened.
For my best, Brock Lesnar was quite high up there as well as Neville. I almost wanted to give it to the Usos just because they'd held the tag titles for the most time this year, but obviously that was hampered for the fact that they had it split over 3 title reigns. So I didn't feel like one of them was stronger than any of the other ones. But I ended up going for Asuka with the NXT Women's Championship, essentially carrying a division that was quite weak at the time, but she was at one point probably the biggest draw in NXT, just due to the strength of her undefeated streak, the strength of her character, the matches that she was putting on with the likes of Ember Moon and Nikki Cross. I think she was an excellent champion, and she retired with the belt undefeated, so can't really go much better than that. For worst, there are a lot of people on my list. Both Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton's time with the WWE Championship was quite high on my list. Up until Tuesday, my choice would have been Kalisto's Cruiserweight Championship run, just because I thought it was completely unnecessary, and it was somebody that nobody really got behind or wanted as champion. But then Dolph Ziggler won the United States Championship. Thank Christ for that I can give Dolph Ziggler another negative award, because he won it and then immediately just left it in the ring, and I couldn't care less. So if he's gone, then good riddance to him.
Technically, they haven't said that he's relinquished it yet. As far as, I mean, we were recording this on Saturday the 23rd. It's going to be posted a little bit later on in this week, but as far as right now, he's still the United States champion.
And I
we'll
couldn't care
when it
less.
comes to SmackDown.
And just due to credibility, like, that was, to put it in perspective, that was the 19th match that he'd won this year. He's lost over 110 matches. Obviously, I know that it's a kayfabe thing, but if you just look at those stats, you think, how is this guy even getting a championship opportunity, let alone winning a championship?
Yeah, I was pretty shocked when that happened. I thought he was only in that match to take the pin.
That's what I thought too, yeah. So our final category for the Technical Skills Awards section is the Match of the Year. And I have to admit, I was not able to actually pick one for the best and one for the worst. So I have it narrowed down to 3 for the worst and 5 for the best. And I didn't get a chance to really go back and check them out. And I might later on go ahead and do that and kind of make a pure distinction. But for my worst options for the year, I had my 3 that I couldn't quite decide with. The House of Horrors match. I absolutely hated that. I thought that it was just... they were trying something different. I get it. But it just didn't work to me at all. Bayley versus Alexa Bliss from Extreme Rules, that Singapore Cane match, was horrendous.
Very hard.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that one. Ugh.
That was really awful. And I had a little asterisk next to that at one point during my list that I had going throughout the year. Then another match happened that I was just like, oh man, I don't know. Rachel Evers versus Marty Bell from round 1 of the Mae Young Classic.
Again on my list.
That, if you haven't seen it, you gotta check it out. That single-handedly probably cost Marty Bell a chance at getting a contract. It's pretty bad. So let's stick on the worst side of things. We'll, kind of backtrack around and do our best. But what are some other worst matches of the year that you guys have?
Well, you're talking about Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton in the House of Horrors match. That's one of them on my list also. I think that was Payback. And then also at WrestleMania with the whole projection of the worms on the mat. And that was, I don't know. I get what they're going for, but I just thought it was goofy. Those get honorable mention. Also honorable mention is Jinder Mahal versus Shinsuke Nakamura at SummerSlam, which, I don't know, it was all right, but not really. The one that sticks out in my mind as being the stupidest, though, was also at SummerSlam, Big Show versus Big Cass with Enzo in the cage suspended above the ring.
Wow.
And he's like, lubing himself up and trying to fit through the bar. That was terrible. The whole time I was just cringing. So that gets my vote for the worst match of the year.
If I go for my worst ones, 5 of the 6 matches that I had labelled down as the potential worst of the year have already been mentioned. That being Orton versus Wyatt at WrestleMania, Marty Bell versus Rachel Evers, Bliss versus Bayley, Mahal versus Nakamura, and Big Cass versus Big Show. So I think I'll just name the other one as my choice, which is Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton at Battleground in the Punjabi prison match.
Yep.
Because the visibility was terrible, the wrestling was boring, the gimmick itself is absolutely atrocious and should never have been brought back.
But how about that finish?
It's the great Khali came back, it was one positive thing. And the match went 30 minutes long. It was 30 minutes. Like, at least most of these other matches had the good grace to be over in a couple of minutes. That was just dragged on and on and on. So, yeah, I have to put that one definitely on top of my list.
Paden, what do you got?
Well, since everybody said like 8 matches, I guess I don't have any left to say that weren't already said. So I'll just
plenty
have
of terrible things.
I'm just going to go with the one I had written down first here, and that's Big Show versus Big Cass from SummerSlam with Enzo in the Shark Cage. Shark Cages above the ring in general are usually pretty terrible stipulations for matches. I can't think of any of them I've enjoyed except for maybe Undertaker Mankind with Paul Bearer in the Shark Cage. Actually, Chris Jericho was in a Shark Cage last year. That was kind of fun too.
No, it was this year. It was the Royal Rumble.
That was this year?
Yeah, it was the Royal Rumble. Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun.
So we had 3 Shark Cage matches this year. We had Jericho, we had the Big Cass Enzo one, and we had the War Games one, technically.
They have to sell those toys.
Didn't we have one with Paul Ellering?
Yeah, right at the start of the year.
Oh, shit. So we had 4. Jesus.
Was that this year, too? Holy shit.
Oh, my God. Wow.
Yeah.
And they still don't call it the Crash Cage after 4 of these.
Well, you know what separated this one in particular with Big Show and Cass from the others? Is that it involved Enzo stripping down to his underwear and rubbing himself in baby oil. And that was perhaps at the top of the list of one of those moments where if I was just sitting watching this someplace, say on like an iPad, someone walked by at that moment, I normally don't give a shit what other people think, but I would feel so red in the face at that moment.
Or if like you went to a bar that they didn't realize and were just like, oh, let's put on like the pay-per-view and have people come over and watch. Then everybody's just like, hey, can you turn that up real quick? What is this? Yeah, some pretty bad matches this year, but thankfully we had some really, really good ones too. So let's talk about the good ones that we got going on here. We've got, I said before, I have a list of 5. I got to go back and rewatch them, and I'm sure that people are going to talk more about these. So, this one isn't my pick, but I think it's maybe the one that somebody isn't going to necessarily pick. So I'll mention it because I'm sure other people will mention some of the other ones. Alistair Black versus the Velveteen Dream from Takeover Wargames.
That's on my list.
Second on my list.
Oh, I loved that match. I thought that not only was it so good, just purely in ring, but the way that they ended it with him doing the whole, like, you know, saying his name type of thing, that was just a fantastic match. And the type of match that a lot of people going into it might have been like, oh, okay, I'm kind of interested in. It just blew the roof off. That was just so fucking good. I'll backtrack a little bit. I'll give people a chance to throw some other ones out there. But anybody have like a number 1 that they pick over anything else?
I have an easy number 1. This is a match that I knew as soon as I saw it was going to be my match of the year. And I think the thing that blew me away the most about it is we didn't know the match was going to happen. And I didn't even see either of these guys really before this, other than in like stories and like pictures and things of that nature. And that was the UK title match we had between Tyler Bate and
Pete Dunne.
That's mine.
Was that a takeover event, right?
Chicago.
That was just absolutely mind blowing, that match. Those guys tore the house down. I want to say I vaguely remember the show not being bad, but it was a little meh up until that point, and then they just lit the crowd on fire, and then I think the main events got everybody back up. But
yeah, that's on my list.
That match just really stuck with me the rest of the year, and I was waiting for a match to really glue me in quite like that did, and none of them have.
That's an excellent pick.
Yeah, that was. I was going to say that was just my choice for the year as well, mainly due to the fact that a lot of other excellent matches that we had this year had a story going into them as well to help essentially build the match itself. This was just thrown onto this show because they didn't really have anything else to fit onto it. And these guys were 2 unknowns unless you'd watched the UK tournament beforehand, which they obviously had the finals match of the UK tournament as well, which is also an excellent match. But just the way that these 2 got the crowd completely hooked and invested into it, the fact that it was completely unexpected, the fact that once the match was over, people knew who these 2 are and think, oh my God, these 2 are going to be huge stars. The fact that Pete Dunne is 24 and Tyler Bate at the time was only 19 years old.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Is like mind-boggling. It should. And yeah, it's just mind-boggling that they were able to put on such a good match.
So that was your number 1 too?
Yeah, and just would also give a mention to the fact they main evented the latest episode of NXT as well with the UK Championship match, which was also it wasn't as good as this match because the ending of their most recent match definitely wasn't up to this standard. But like they've had 3 matches this year and they've been 3 of the best matches across the entirety of 2017.
Calen, toss out some if you have
Yeah, that Tyler Bate versus Pete Dunne match. It surprised me because, like you said, it didn't have a lot of storyline heading into it. So it was kind of a nice surprise to just come in with basically they tilled everything in the ring. So that was definitely an awesome match. I really enjoyed the tag team match at WrestleMania where the Hardys ended up winning. Alistair Black versus Velveteen Dream, that's number 3 on my list. And number 2 is from most recent, well, not most recent, but Survivor Series, Brock Lesnar versus AJ Styles, where AJ was kind of thrown in at the last minute to replace Jinder, which was a great improvement. I really enjoyed that match. Yeah, like night and day. And my best, I would say, it was in my worst, I listed 2 matches from SummerSlam. My best, I would say, was the main event of SummerSlam, and that was the Fatal 4-Way, Lesnar, Strowman, Joe, and Reigns. That was a lot of fun. I saw it as soon as that match was over. I was like, that's definitely in my top 3 of the year, and it ended up being number 1.
couple other ones that I had written down. AJ Styles versus John Cena at the Royal Rumble. Remember having a huge amount of praise for that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think a whole lot of people are going to necessarily put this on their list, but Reigns and Strowman's ambulance match at Great Balls of Fire. I ended up really liking that, and I didn't think that I was going to.
Yeah, that's actually the only match from there too that they've had this year that wasn't on my list. I preferred their Fastlane and Payback matches.
Fair enough. I think that they had really good chemistry, more so than they really should have in certain roles. And the other one that I had written down was the triple threat Authors of Pain Revival and DIY from Takeover Orlando.
That was on mine as well.
Really, really solid match. I think, gun to my head, I probably would go Bate Dunn as the best match of the year, and I'm going to have to rewatch these again, but all these matches, I mean, you have something as bad as Bayley Alexa Bliss, and then you get something as good as like Black Velveteen Dream, and you're just sort of like, it kind of renews your faith a little bit, you know? So those are some of the positive side of things and some of the worst side of things as well. As far as the technical skills awards go for WWE, that is one umbrella category down. We're going to move into the next section with the writing awards. So again, if you are on YouTube, click on that video. That'll be part 2, and we will see you there.